no, I'm supposed to be sharing because sharing is caring, isn't it? Just a second. Okay, so just watch how just look how beautiful picture of purity today. So welcome to the chapter 3 of our series about clean code 2 decades later. This will be about immutability in practice. That's the title. And we will cover today pure functions, designing immutable objects, and try to understand what does it mean to think in a functional style. Okay, so this is the agenda for today. Good. Before we begin, 1 minute about me. What's up with me? You've been perhaps to the past episodes, but I'm Victor Renta. I am talking in Java. I'm training people for the past 8 years, and I'm now doing this for a living, teaching best practices of the major frameworks used in Spring and coding styles like functional programming. Also teaching architecture, clean code refactoring, unit testing and test-driven development, plus performance, reactive programming, oh my god, this is a hardcore area, and secure coding. This is what I'm doing for a living, and I'm also doing meetups and events, and that's why we are gathered here today in this wonderful joint. Just let's see. Sound is okay? Okay, I think it's okay. Can't hear me. I am speaking. All right, so, well, if you want to know more about me, I have a website that you can then find my stuff, my agenda, what I typically teach in companies, but I also do groups that you can join. More details on my site. I mean, you can join another group formed of other developers from other companies. And I have some stuff recorded already on Teachable, some hardcore topics. Everything starts in from my website. But most importantly, this today happens because I have this wonderful community that I'm growing. Is breaking the let me just make sure of something. Let me just make sure that my internet is as good as usual. Yep, it is. So it's not on my side. No, I will definitely invite you to join my community. This is why this series of events is possible with the help of PentaBAR today. But I'm doing stuff on this community every day. So feel free to join. That's completely free, and there will be good stuff. For example, the next event scheduled for January will be from someone from Serbia that I invited to tell us about how you build team culture or technical team culture. So be sure you are here. It's very fun stuff, trying to do an event every month. Good, so that's me. And I have some YouTube channel also on which many of these events or from this community are already recorded, available publicly. Right, beautiful picture, amazing, look. Just look. Which app do I use to draw on the screen? It's called Zoom It. Good. 1994, it was raining outside. And Bertrand Meyer had an idea to separate, thank you, George, to separate functions into categories. First of all, there are functions that return void. Now, if you ever find a function returning void, why would you ever call it? Definitely not for the result, isn't it? So when you call a function returning void, you definitely want to produce some side effects, some changes in the outside world. And now in our case, to set a field, to send an email, a message on the queue, to do stuff, to insert in database, to do stuff. So Bertrand considered that the methods that return void should be commands just doing side effects. And it's natural for them to be like that. But the game is what happens with the other functions that return results. Now, the human examples are very funny. What happens if you search for a flight on some airline and then you find some price in the morning, but if you search again on the same low-cost airline, you find the price plus 20 euros in the afternoon when you want to purchase the flight. This is something that could happen to you. Searching for the same thing twice will give you different results even during the same day, right? And besides that, searching on Facebook, should your searches on Facebook be inserted in 7 systems? I don't know, but they definitely persist your stuff, what you're searching for somewhere. So it turns out that when you query for data and your query does some side effects, you don't expect that perhaps. If you ask to compute the price of something and if you pass the same parameters, you may not expect to see different results the next time. So these two basically mean that changes happen or you get different results. Now, Burton considered that humans, and I agree, typically expect that if you get a result back, you don't change stuff when you search, and you get the same results back if you search for the flight the second time. So functions that are returning results should be made pure functions. Oh my God, 180 people in the call. By the way, as usual, if you can put the language that you are speaking, I mean, programming language, in the chat, it will help me a bit to drive the design here, the discussion. Good. Now, pure functions, what are those things? Let's see, JavaScript, Java, Python, okay, Java, Kotlin, yeah, thank you, bravo. Clojure, oh my God, you are lucky. Go, Swift, .NET, JVM, C++, my condolences, TypeScript, Java, C++, C#, PHP, right, C#, good. So mainly Java, but also PHP, C#, and a bit of C++, and okay, good. Kotlin, bravo. Now, pure functions should not do side effects, should not change something, shouldn't do inserts, posts over network, and not even changing fields. They should not do changes. Mike, please. And besides so they don't change, they just return results. And there is another characteristic, the results they return, they have the same, logging doesn't count. Yes, indeed. Logging doesn't count, indeed. The function just returns stuff, and the stuff that you return, it should be the same if you pass the same inputs, which makes the function referential transparent. That's the geek word for this concept. Referential transparent. You can call it as many times you want. They will give you the same result every time back. That will discourage you from using current time and random, or getting data over network, because who knows what comes if you query it twice. Good. So basically, pure functions are just computations, okay? Computations. The best example I can give you is mathematical functions. Good. Now, pure functions. Why do we care about pure functions? Now, before we continue, I want to make sure that there is a very subtle difference here between this and idempotency. Idempotency is when you call a function. Referential transparent really means that if you have a function that you know it returns 3, you can just safely replace 3 everywhere over the function invocations, maybe effectively not calling the function anymore at all. This is not the same as idempotency, because idempotency means that if you crash the vase once, if you crash it again second time, it won't matter if you delete that thing again. So idempotency means that after a first call, any subsequent calls won't do any difference, right? The best example is the delete. It's not really referential transparent because you have to delete it once. A bit subtle difference if you want. So an idempotent function can actually have side effects, but repeating them shouldn't matter. All right, I won't talk about idempotency more today, but there was this confusion. Instead, I would like you to think: is this function pure? Pure? I mean, pure means no side effects and the same result. Given x as an argument, return x plus 1. Yes, it's pure. Sure, because it just computes the stuff. If I give you this function, taking data returns plus d plus dot x, what the heck is plus d? No, that's not exact, Michael. That's not pure because I'm changing the value of x, all right? All right, F3, increment x, return d plus d dot x. If you look at the method, you might expect no, of course, increment, it's the side effect, okay? But you don't really know, right, Michael? You don't really know. You expect that increment x does some side effects. So what do we learn from this? That names matter. All of us, we orient by the names of the function. So if a function suggests it changes something, it probably does. Yes. And another thing to learn, if a function that you call is not pure, you can't possibly be pure yourself. All right? Good. Then F4, if you query for SQL. Query for SQL, that brings data across the network. It depends. Actually, no, it doesn't depend. That's not pure. That's not pure because if you run the query a second time, that might bring different results. But there might be caching involved, which makes it appear like referential transparent, but that might bring different results if someone committed some stuff afterwards in the same database. There is a discussion advanced about isolation there, but I won't go there today. Today is a beautiful day. So f5, taking int I and returning this dot x plus y. Now, what the heck is that? Return this dot x plus y. It depends. Interesting. Remember, you say no. But it depends. Well, it depends on what? It depends on whether x can change. Yes, exactly. It depends whether this is immutable. Perfect. Oh, I love it. Depends whether this is immutable. Right? Now, if x can't change between two invocation of f5, then giving the same, this whole purity stuff becomes a bit fuzzy if you talk about instance method like here. So that's why most people prefer to talk about pure functions as static functions. Yeah, it's read-only, but it can change in between two calls. So it's tricky. It's difficult to reason about purity if your objects in play change. However, it is easier to reason here. Why? I am calling a function, passing an argument d and I as parameters. Now, my result is only deriving data results from the input arguments. Yeah, indeed, this might not be mutable, might be immutable, right? I might get the same instance with different values inside, but that really doesn't matter because it feels like you have a different argument the next time you call the function. So in this case, this is pure. Although indeed, you expect this is a getter and it's pure. We expect that's pure. If get x increments x, then we're screwed. So, that's definitely not changing anything. Technically, not quite. This dot x means that you have the same this on the same object calling function. It's complicated. It's not that easy. If you want to a sharp definition, to judge about purity, you need to consider this. The fields of the current instance as a hidden input to your function. It's complicated to analyze. This, however, is much easier because the result is only derived from the input arguments and nothing else. Good. One more advanced topic over here is that if you ever throw exceptions, that can be considered as being pure, but there will be some functional maniacs out there that will claim this is not pure because it breaks the flow. Mike, it's tricky. If technically you can imagine like an object, like you say, let's say object dot f5 passing 3 as an argument, and then later on in the same method o dot f5 again passing 3, but you might get different results. Why? Because in between something might have changed in o. What? X might have changed. All right. So there might be this hidden input that comes from the instance fields of your method, right? Interesting. Kotlin can have had effects in field and property access. I mean, when you do get, and all the languages can do that. In a getter, you can change stuff, right? It's a method after all. That's a bad practice, of course. But yeah, it's an old t-shirt. Okay, good. Okay. Wait, folks, but if you want to discuss this purity function, that would get really, it deserves a separate discussion itself, this one. There are languages which actually make very good use of this, like Scala, like Haskell, like Clojure. But the other languages like Java, C# and PHP or TypeScript, these purity is a bit tricky to implement and complicated to reason about. So anyway, if you change something, that definitely makes your function become not pure. But why do we care? You might ask. Because life is life. Imagine this code, and then you change the order of the lines. And then you have a bug. Boom. Why? Because it turns out that the order of these lines matter. That happened to me 15 years ago. What was wrong? Check customer was actually changing the customer, marking it as active. And then the check order expected the customer to be active. Boom! And that by just changing some line orders, nothing told you in the code that these lines should happen in a certain order, isn't it? Nothing hinted you about that. So that's tricky. That's what you get if you do side effects in functions, right? That's a very bad practice, to mutate parameters. Don't ever change parameters that you are given. In the same style, if you ever get a list as a parameter, God forbid you change that list. inside this function. Never. Please don't ever do that. Generate and create new lists, new collections. Right? That is called temporal coupling, and this tends to give us bugs every day and shocks and unknown, mysterious code. Let's see what you say, Mike. Yeah, exactly, Mike. I also expected that the check only throws exceptions, not to change something. The names confused me. So names are really the only tool we have to enforce purity. Good names. Least astonishment principle. Thank you. Very good. Good. So pure functions, if these were pure functions, the only way you can actually design them, so if you want to change the customer, you need to return it. I will show you code very soon. You need to return the stuff back, customer back. And now, if you return it back, I think it's more apparent that the stuff that you got back, you pass further. And you can could name it active customer, and you pass active customer over here. So pure functions made it obvious when you change stuff. So temporal coupling becomes apparent in the actual code. It's obvious. This customer is passed over here. That's some mysterious thing going on. All right. Oh my God, Gatiri, that's insanely bad. But look, I can't paste here. I will put a notepad. So that's very, very a cached object, and the cached object was changed. Oh my God. So you change stuff in the cache, right? Very, very criminal, because what was in the database or the source of truth didn't change. Oh my God. So the only way for a pure function to change the customer is to return a new one, right? So basically, if you swap the lines that might not compile, actually let's call it active customer. That's even better. That will make it sure that there is a different. I can already show you another problem here. What I was doing was bad. Customer equal, what was that? I am reassigning a local variable, you see, or a parameter. That's a bad practice. And that bad practice is quite widespread. If you try to move to immutability, you will see. Reassigning parameters is a bad practice. Instead, define a new variable. You know what I'm doing, just what I was doing yesterday at 2 a.m.? I'm working on my own little plugin for IntelliJ. And I'm doing just this. I'm trying to fix this with a refactoring, which is not yet available in IntelliJ. It's called split variables. How many slides? I don't have 260. No, this is my own. No, this is like clean code. This is like paradise. This is my clean code training. So I won't do everything with it. No. Or everything with you today. So the point is that pure functions return data, but that reassigning customer is a bad practice. Reassigning local variables is a bad practice. Now, if the code looks like this, if you try to reorder the lines, these will not compile, which makes clear for you the code breaks if you mess up the order of the lines. Good. So, pure functions. Why do we love them? They don't have hidden inputs or weird temporal coupling. They are just plain sight return values and parameters. So there is no mystery about it. They are much easier to test because just think, any pure function. I mean, if you go to database, bang, you're not pure. If you get, select, insert, any other call you do on the network, that's not pure. So pure functions are much easier to test because they rely on much less dependencies. So that's a principle I explained in many talks already. Pure functions are much easier to test with that because they require less mocking. And I will spend about 2 hours in my unit testing training with you to explain this in detail. Good. Now, also, a pure function allows us to call it many times we want, and that enables us to refactor more. And I also need to mention pure functions are a pleasure to work in case you want multi-threading or parallelizer. There is this concept, InfiniSpan Spark do this. They take your Lambda, your function, and they ship it on 10 machines. They produce data, applying the function on all the servers, and then they gather back the results. This parallelizable, this pure functions can do that, compute results and bring back my data. Now, why do I really love pure functions in refactoring? Tricky fields, and don't really agree there, but we'll come back. A pure and fast function, a pure function is usually fast. So a pure and fast function is safe to call as many times as you want. So if you have a variable in some place, and you want to inline the variable, to destroy the variable and put the call in both places, you won't have any risk if that function is pure. It's very easy just to repeat the call. It's super fast and it's pure. So that allows us to better twist, better work with our code. So pure functions are really good, really good for refactoring, really good. All right, let's move to immutability, because that's where the most damage is. That's what we typically do. We change state. That's what harms us. And that's the topic of today, immutable objects. And because it's been a while, let's go to code. Yeah, so let's start with a simple example, and I plan to go very deep with you today. A simple example. Okay, immutable. This, what do you mean? This immutable? Oh my God. All the languages that are in the house here, you can know that this is extremely not, this is not immutable. Be quiet, because I have unprotected access to my fields. Whoever wants here in the business logic part, if you ever, for example, call some innocent method passing your immutable as an argument, that innocent method can end up doing, oh my God, immutable dot x equal, boom, killing your, destroying your state, of course. Yeah, at least name, what name? So the first thing we do, we want to encapsulate these, there's a refactoring for this, encapsulate fields. And you can do this, right? ReSharper also has it, PHP Storm, I think. Yes, I'm pretty sure. Good, get x set, and then you wonder, why do I have a setter? Well, the next thing you do. So setters should disappear, die. Don't trust method names. We should be able to trust our code. So no setters, of course. Immutable objects can't change. We don't have a setter for an immutable object, only getters. So that's the first thing you need to do. Now, if you don't have setters, how in the world do you set them? Through a constructor, of course. Constructor. Oops. Once more, with all the arguments. Good. Now, once you have the constructor, IntelliJ will tell you these can become final. Basically, IntelliJ will tell you, my friend, did you know that immutable objects, final fields, are really good for your health? And you say, whoa, very cool. So this X stuff should, let's make all the fields final. Bang. Now, my plugin over there suggests you to use Lombok. Anyway, constructor taking all the fields. Java is an old language. Most languages that I saw, most other languages that I saw around in the house have better ways of doing stuff, like taking arguments in here. But Java is Java, so we have to live with it. So definitely you can't set X anymore. You can just get stuff. But let's imagine that you wanted to set X. What's the only option you have? Recurse, yes, indeed. What's the only option you have if you want to change the immutable object? Is to return it back, reinit, exactly. Basically to reconstruct it, to return back a new immutable object, right? That takes the same X, and the new X, the old numbers, immutable numbers, and the old immutable other. Very good. And we should return it back. That's the only way I can work with immutable object. Now, so the caller has to realize that this is a changed, as I said, I wouldn't reassign to the same variable. As a matter of fact, I had a client, very high-tech client, which if you did that, your compilation failed. Your compilation failed. The code will not compile if you do that, if you reassign variables. Even IntelliJ tries to warn you this is a bad practice because it underlined the variable name. If you see, there's a 1 pixel solid light gray that appears only if you reassign the variable. Oh my God. So this is a bad practice. I mean, instead of, and that's what my refactoring will do. I will alt enter here and I will do split variable, creating a new variable. So let's see. Customer, immutable, actually change, not customer, it's immutable. What the heck am I doing? Extract variable, of course. New changed object, which I will use in the code below. This is what the only way you can change the code. Now, it is a very good practice. Yeah, but if you make these final, that won't help you much because in Java at least, this doesn't help you. You can still change it if it has setters. And by the way, I am not a very big fan of marking all my parameters and how to say this. Let me fix compilation and we'll come back in a second to that discussion. Someone said, mark your fields and arguments final. Interesting idea. Let's see how that works. But before, let me fix compilation. I want to have some compiling code here, please. Good, thank you. Immutable, perfect. Now, There is a habit, and I told you, I started the discussion, is a bad practice to assign to the same variable. And as a matter of fact, one solution is to mark all the variables final here, final arguments. And I've seen many code bases looking like this, right? In my personal preference, I don't like this very much because it pollutes the code everywhere. The code just is much larger everywhere. But I will instead look to the underline that IntelliJ very kindly puts in my code. But I won't say it's bad to do final. If you are really wanting to put final in the code, I just have to tell you that you can ask IntelliJ to actually mark all the fields automatically final. The way to do this, I will share the slides with you afterwards. There is this inspection, local variable can be final, and then if you clean up code, and if you can clean up at commit, and at commit, it will mark all the fields possible, all the variables and parameters possible. It will make them final automatically for you. But I'm not a big fan, I told you. Right. So now, this is ugly, yes. Other languages like Kotlin have very good stuff. Mishu told me last meeting that if I have a data class in Kotlin, I have a copy, which in Java, this is ugly. And this is ugly. Also in PHP is ugly. Perhaps it has better way to do this, like you can use objects clone, I think it's called, to just overwrite one argument, but still, how can we do this in Java? The problem with this line is that it knows a lot about the internals of my method. That's the real design issue here. If I add one more field over here, which is part of the constructor, then I will have to edit this code over here, which is bad. It breaks somehow the encapsulation. Wither, exactly, Georgia. This is what I will do. This method actually belongs inside the immutable itself. So let's call this with shift F6 with x. With x. To be honest, you know what? Could be some logic here inside. Just this part I want to make with x. With x takes the old immutable and x as argument. I'm preparing a talk about refactoring next year, by the way. And then this can become an instance method inside the immutable object itself. Bang. It looks like immutable, but with x. And if a new field appears inside, I won't have to change. Okay. Again, this is a Java language limitation. Other languages don't have it, but most of you are Java. With, exactly. And this is what you get automatically if you just annotate this with with. With generates exactly this code for you. Interesting. You didn't know about with. I'm sure many of you. Okay. And if you want to play the Lombok, yes, copy is super powerful in Kotlin. I know. I mean, I've heard. Now, this thing over here is generated. If you want to go Kotlin, if you want to Kotlin Lombok, if you want to go Lombok with this all the way, it goes like value. Most of you knew about data already, but value goes deeper, further than it's basically data plus private final on all fields. I will try to reduce the amount of Java specifics I am using. So this with over here generates you everything we have in here, everything. But perhaps it's too early. It's immutable data, exactly. So perhaps it's too early. Allow me to spend a bit more time before we do that to ask you: is this class really immutable? What do you think? Is this class now immutable? Look at it. Let's see. Rami said, data with GPA not friends. Do you know what I was doing yesterday? Lombok and Hibernate. If I put data over here, this is not yet on the marketplace, this feature. If I put data on a class and I have entity, it will warn you about problems and allow you to quick fix the... The plugin is called live coding. Live coding, if you want to search it. I already have 50 downloads, 50. It's 007. Now, list is not immutable. Let's keep the discussion as much possible language agnostic. List is not immutable. These collections, and in many languages, C# also has this problem. If someone in here in the innocent method, apparently, goes and takes your immutable and says, get numbers clear, just destroyed your state. In the original state, destroyed it, because the numbers are by default immutable. All right? Yeah, I'm sorry, Sylvie. Yes, I will try to limit Lombok. You are right. So, Java, okay? This is not okay because the list by default, Java is an old language, and by default, it doesn't have by default immutable collections like other modern languages have, like Scala, Clojure, Kotlin. They started already with immutable collections, but Java is old. So the only way around it, there are three ways to fix the problem of having mutable collections exposed in my getter. Right? Let me just demonstrate that this is a problem, just briefly. Look, if I return immutable, if I look in the original object, I should not see anything different, isn't it? So if I had the original five numbers, I should see the 5 numbers at the end, right? Rami, there are no alternatives so here we are. We just destroyed the list inside. So 3 alternatives to this. The first one that many developers think of is the worst one, is to clone the list. Clone, duplicate. But that leads to a memory allocation, which makes your application just degrade performance and waste memory and stuff like that. Now, this is bad, as I said. So let's see what else other options we have. The correct option in Java, clean Java, is yes, there is actually a quick fix. Wrap with unmodifiable list. Bang. A modifiable list, which returns another implementation of the list interface, which blocks any attempt to change anything. So if you now run the code as it is, it will crash at runtime. Crash at runtime because that's actually an implementation of the decorator design pattern. It decorates the original list without allocating a new array. Just a view, it's like a projection, exactly. It's like an immutable projection. You don't have this problem in PHP, by the way. PHP by default clones your arrays when you return them. So that's on PHP. So here you are. Bang, unsupported operation when you want to do clear, because what? Because clear throws. Clear throws while other methods which just read get through. Yes, actually the caller can't really change my collection anymore because it doesn't have access to my original collection. It gets a decorator on top of it. Yes, Yeldos, and the third solution to this problem. What's the problem with this one before we proceed? The problem is that there is no way that the caller knows it shouldn't do that. So the caller might not know about the runtime error. You might not expect boom. Right? Least copy of is the same thing. It will allocate memory, putting pressure on the garbage collector and just memory, useless memory. Why? I'm just reading it. So what's the correct solution? The best solution, like Yildo said, the best solution is to actually upgrade from Java. What do you mean? Folks, I'm not sure. I personally never saw a library with a version larger than 30. What the heck is Guava? Have you heard of Google before? Google plus Java had a baby. Their baby is Guava. And I can, of course, version 30, what the hell? Guava. It's one of the libraries I see most widespread today. Or use Kotlin. Thank you so much. There is always someone who says, or use Kotlin. Yes, and actually, that would be better in this scenario. But you might have large code bases, teams that know Kotlin. So the solution, the best solution to the problem is to give up using Java collections framework. And instead of having a list around, go for immutable list from Java. But now, this causes a lot of damage because, so let me show you what happens. You will change it everywhere. If you change it everywhere, you don't really need to this is redundant, it's useless because they can't be changed. Now, this is an aggressive change. Hibernate will start screaming, of course, what do you mean immutable? But although Mongo can persist this safely, the immutable list over here will, why do I say this? It's a lot of damage. You need to change it everywhere. So immutable list over here, you will have to start, we're working with immutable list everywhere. It will ripple everywhere. Now, the funny thing is that this immutable list also implements the list interface. If you look at it, immutable list implements, where are you? Collection, list, it implements list. But it does something very interesting. It deprecated clear. So that points out to the developer that this should, like, maybe I shouldn't call clear. What about that? So it's they wanted to implement list because of backwards compatibility, but the point is you say in your, it's a dedicated type. In Kotlin, we have mutable list of or list of dedicated types, which signal that they shouldn't be mutated. Good. You will still get a runtime error. Huh? Yes, they broke the list of substitution principle. Bravo, John. Yes, on purpose. Right? They broke the API, but they were kind enough to deprecate the method. Good. Now, clear. That will fail right now. But it also points the developer about. Good. That's the best way to handle immutable collections. There you go. Now, one more thing. Is my class now immutable? Well, if you look at it, all probably yeah, but before we say yes, what's with the other? What's with the other? Oops. It's not deeply immutable. It's shallowly immutable. It's just superficially immutable. The fields can't change, but the same thing like with lists, right? So what we do, delete the setter, and then IntelliJ will point to master. Master final things are good for your health. That's what we'll do. And now you can actually say that the whole object graph starting with immutable is indeed fully deeply immutable. All right. Good. This is Java. I will commit this on this branch. Java immutable, truly immutable, deep immutable objects. And we also saw the idea of a wither. I promise no more Lombok, but I can't. Just the value stuff. It will just allow me to destroy everything from here, everything from here, everything, and then all of this thing just goes out the window. Bang, boom, out. Right? Okay, other languages have better ways to do immutable objects. All right. Now, that's the basic, right? Now, I expect some of you might not really understand why are we struggling that much. What's the point? I started with the idea that purity is good, pure function is immutable, but wait. Immutability is really hard to implement in the existing flows. So why should we struggle? A bit of motivation or a bit of explanation of the benefits of immutability in general. Because I expected all of you knew already what's up with immutability, what is immutable, but the goal was to talk about real life usage, right? So why do we care about that? How do you use it in practice? Imagine you have a function, and why? You have a function out there which takes a data as an argument, and you have an if over here. Right? If x equals 1, then you launch a missile. Okay, like this, huh? Launch a missile.
What does this button do?
And you want to determine whether you entered if or not. So you need to trace where the data came from. It came from here, and then it came from the original function over there. Okay? And back there, it has the value 1. So apparently, you enter the function. Maybe. If data is mutable, then you're screwed, because anywhere on the path, anyone can set the x. If that set happens on the main flow, you are okay, you are safe. But the real horror happens when you call a function out there, and that function deep, after 7 more functions deep, in a long night of debugging, someone had the idea. Let's mutate this field and do this quick dirty fix to fix that bug. This is when it gets horror. All right. Against these things, immutability protects you. About unintended or unknown changes of state happening deep inside the long, complicated flow. This is when you really want immutable objects. If that's immutable object, you don't need to look for setters. You can just delete everything and you don't care. You can just scan to see where that thing came from. All right. So let's see our example. And actually, there are tools that can help you to trace changes. Let me show you. If you have a function over here that takes this change the object, and that function is here, and you want to see f dot, what did we change? The x. Not f, sorry. New change the object dot new change the object dot get x. And I put an if it's equal to 1 dot, or 2, it was original, then I do an if, and I print something, the same thing, like missile here. Good. And there are tools that can help you. For example, did you know about this thing? Right click, Navigate. Is it navigate code? What the heck is that? Analyze. Data flow to here. What the heck is that? No matter how complex code are as is above, IntelliJ can trace where this object that you are looking at came from. It came from here. Done. You might not know where that came from. It just tracks down using syntax. Where did that object came from? And it's clear from here, and then this guy did this. So it points you to the last place where the object came from. Bang. So it's much easier to know where the changes occurred, if they occurred, wherever the code you had. Very advanced feature over here, data flow. Okay, so it's easier to track the data. That's the big deal. So my point with immutable objects, how do they help you in practice? So immutable objects have a series of advantages. So let me list them. I think I had a summary somewhere. Where are you? They have a series of advantages. One of them is that they are thread safe. They can't really cause you race bugs, and because they can't change. You create new stuff. So immutable objects are a mandatory thing if whenever you implement multi-threaded code. Mandatory today. Or reactive flows, the same. Immutable objects all the way. But besides that, we don't not all of us, we are doing concurrency and multi-threading in reactive, God forbid, programming. But instead, we are concerned with deep, complex logic. And the problems we face is changes happening deep in a long workflow. Right? So instead of having as a mindset, that was my goal, my main goal today, mindset. Don't change stuff inside, but instead return it to what you wanted to change. Return the diff, return the stuff, the new stuff. Back. These all are pure functions, pure. They just return. And back at the surface, you take the returned value from this method B, you take it, and you apply it on your stuff. So, if you look closely, entity E is not immutable. It has a setter. But everything in the deep flow, it only uses these immutable objects. So, what am I talking about? You all have some deep part of your code doing a lot of complexity, right? Whenever you isolate, whenever you identify such complex logic, that complex logic, okay, should be implemented with a functional mindset by just taking up parameters and returning results, not changing anything. It's the onion inside the onion, Thomas. Exactly. It's a little onion inside there is also infrastructure, if you want, surrounding all this. So the core is a functional core, and that's called functional core imperative shell segregation. That's a very, very subtle design principle that I usually discuss in my unit testing training. At the end, they get to see these things. So anything that causes the function to be impure, like files, database accesses, API calls, changes in fields, everything should happen outside of the core, or outside of the part which is the most complex. There is this cyclomatic complexity that you can orient yourself. The functions which are very, very complex, many branches inside, they should not do changes also. They should only return results. It's a very good and subtle practice that you could go for. Functional call imperative shell segregation, Google this up, very advanced stuff. The core should be made pure. Why? Because there is no danger of something happening in a long night of debugging, right? So these all can be made pure. This is the big deal of immutable objects. This is the big deal of immutable objects, right? When you purify the most complex parts of your code. And I feel that I should explain what I mean. So one example that I don't usually do in my refactoring training because it's very advanced, but I can do this with you today. What do we have here? We have some objects that are as usual, just have getters and setters, everything, right? Get, set. And we have this very complicated supplier discount. And I pass product to a method returning void. Now, why do you think I pass a product to the method returning void? For it to change the product itself, for doing side effects. Now, what's bad about this? The problem is that just imagine discount. Can you imagine how complex that part is? Very good, Thomas. Oh my God. Look, this is a very good remark. You should map your entities to immutable objects before entering in complex things, complex code. That's exactly the principle. Extract an immutable projection and pass the immutable projection inside. Do not pass mutable objects in long, criminally complex logic. Okay? But this exercise over here tries to prove how we can refactor towards immutable objects. So let's see. Just look, I am passing the product in. Why? Because I need inside supplier ID, of course. And I need the product ID and the category. Good. But I also change the product. Change the product somewhere deep in my code. This change over here can produce a lot of damage. Again, just think of it. If I invert these two lines, do you all agree I'll have a bug? What? Not sure. Do I have a test for this to prove that bug? Hope I made one. Yes, I have. If I invert the two lines, I get a bug, because if I subtract and then apply a 20%, it's a different thing than applying 20% and then subtracting. Look, the tests failed. If I change the lines, oh shit. The order in which I apply that math matters. So I don't want to be doing these changes deep inside the flow. So how do I proceed? Yes, it's a temporal coupling. Very well, Rami, you recognize the problem on the first slide. So here, these two lines, I want them to make, these two functions, I want to make them pure. Why? Because they are complex or they had a lot of bugs over the past years. And I want to make them pure. This is where you'll get most benefit from immutable objects. So first of all, the principle, do not change parameters. Instead, return your change. What is my change? My change is the factor with which I need to multiply my price. So instead of doing the set price in here in a hidden place, if you want, I can make more methods to make it more complex for you to find it, like somewhere deep, like long, deep flow. But the point is, return the change. How? Instead of multiplying and setting it myself, right? I need to return it out. Actually, before doing that, exactly, Tristan, oh my God, it feels so good. Exactly, that was the same. I was thinking exactly about this. This set price of get price multiplying by a factor, that should be something inside the product itself. Remember the last session we had about identifying value objects and putting behavior inside the object? So let's make a method after this. It's like apply percent, discount percent, discount percent, good, percent, what the heck, percent, I think it's E, right, porcent. Romanian pork, it's Christmas. Romanian percent, good. And then this should go inside, but before I do that, the actual discount rate, this discount percent, is it percent or rate? Discount rate, let's name it, rate, good. This method now should go inside the product. Thank you. Move like I did last time, done. Product.apply. Good. But now the actual computation of discount rate is very complex. You can imagine how much logic is there. Very good. So this now, instead of applying the discount itself, it will return the discount rate as a value, as a not apply. The function is not called applied. It's like get supplier discount rate. All right. Then what? Well, technically, I think I did something wrong. The rate is not really, where are you, product? Rate is not 1 minus the discount rate should be subtracted by me. So let me, instead of doing this, no, I think it's okay. 1 minus rate, it's okay. Coming back up here, how do I transform this? This discount rate, I will have in here, discount rate in plain sight. And then I will apply it over here. Product.apply discount rate. You might ask yourselves, what's the big difference? You're doing the same thing. Yes, but I'm doing it in plain sight at the top level, not in the middle of a very complicated function. Apply discount rate. Okay? And the same I will do it here. I mean, this is subtracting A. Okay, applying discount, what's that? Discount, fixed discount. That should be applied fixed discount. Method, apply fixed discount to sequence of steps. I first extract the method. Oops. I did something wrong. Let me undo a bit. Here. Apply. Fixed discount. Keep the signature. And then move in the product. Out. Good. And this all, I should return my discount. As a value. And up here at the front, product.apply fixed discount of this. And that's not apply anymore, is get delivery discount done. Okay, then there is still, shouldn't be the apply supplier discount rate. I want to be a bit more generic, apply discount rate. I might have different kinds of discount. So maybe I need to, I don't know, multiply the discounts with each other and then apply them all. But I didn't yet do it all. Why? Because I still pass product inside the method. And exactly like Thomas suggested, why shouldn't we pass like a projection from the product instead of passing the mutable stuff? Because it's very complex and someone will have the idea to change it at some point. So it's not safe to pass it inside. So in practice, what you can do is to create from the product, like we did last time. Do I have record here? No. But let me cheat a bit. Value, class. I will say a record for price computation. Like a little value object that contains exactly the thing that I need. We can imagine the product has much more fields than the ones that I use in my discount computation. But here inside, I can put supplier ID. So folks, what am I going for? Immutable parameters. To do that, I need a parameter object that contains these three things. That's what I'm constructing over here. I need a supplier ID. What is that? Supplier ID, price, no, ID and category. Supplier ID, ID and category. So from these three fields, I only need these. Private is redundant. And there's my class, category, thank you. Oops, not that. Category, did I select it? Just a second, import that one. Okay, and then this thing is an immutable object, just like we created before. And I will pass this in here. Yes, it has also to do a bit with DDD, because the value objects really are not coming from there, but they really emphasize them. And then from the product, I can get, okay, now there are two ways that you can do this. I can do for computation, I can, or maybe even better, in order not to couple my entity to my value object, maybe the other way around, like having a constructor in here, that takes the product as an argument and extracts the field it wants. So ID, this ID equals product ID. Oops, product, what's wrong with you? Product, thank you. And then this, thank you. And then this dot supplier. There were smarter ways to refer to this, but I didn't prepare this. Okay, this dot category equals product dot category. Done. So now I'm extracting. I don't have this coupling to this, but other way around. So, and here I just need to instantiate my new stuff. Done. So I extracted an immutable projection from my big product, passing the immutable projection into a deep flow. One of the most complex, just a funny story, one of the most complex kind of logic I saw besides prices is computing the damage that a hero did in a game. The damage based on the abilities, the skills, the items in his inventory. It was a criminally complex logic to determine the damage inflicted when he attacks someone. So that computation had inside the inventory as mutable items, and someone did bugs in there. It was extremely thousands of lines of logic to compute the damage. Want using constructor again be that record can modify the original entity. What? I don't understand. What do you mean? I can change it from here, but I just took the snapshot of the state and I passed it around as immutable objects into my functions. I don't follow. Underground. Please explain if you want. Good. Well, that's what I wanted to show you more or less. Product can be modified in the constructor, yes, but that's a single function, superficially called over here. The risk of having someone doing a bug fixing here is very low. I I don't keep a product inside. That would be more risky if I do that. But I just take a snapshot and I propagate an immutable object later. So the risk of someone fixing a bug or doing a hack in here are quite low. Immutability, articles, I don't know. I learned them the hard way. I'm thinking in real code bases. From when I go to my clients, I usually take code from their production. So it's all about protecting from unwanted changes, to make the changes superficial so you can reason about them, you can see them in plain sight, because changes to state cause a lot of damage. So separate change in state from computations. That's basically the essence of this idea, of this discussion today, right? Okay. Now, immutable objects, if they are in real life, we need to be honest. Oh, look here, connections with Guava, as I said, Guava, immutabilist, immutable. But one last thing here, they do a very smart thing about cloning. Just several more points, and then we'll start talking about your questions. Immutable object in real life. Now, the vast majority of applications, don't use Vavor, please. Use Kotlin. If the vast majority of projects today that have the biggest functional complexity, business complexity, is using Hibernate in Java, or Entity Framework in C#, or Doctrine in PHP, or God knows what in TypeScript, I forgot the name. I mean, object relational mappers. They are heavily used in the most complex applications we are building today. Some applications are concerned with super high frequency, like 1,000 requests per second. Those will not usually use Hibernate. I will go like Cassandra, something super fast. But the classes, the projects which have the most horror business complexity that I ever saw were using Hibernate. And in this game, entities in Hibernate, they can't ever be immutable. Hibernate doesn't work like that. It will never support immutable. They are trying to do stuff. But they are doing a lot of workarounds and hacks in that game. Hibernate and immutability itself doesn't play very nice. So how do we use immutability in practice? The core root entity, it will remain mutable, but I will try to extract little objects that encapsulate bits of fields like I did last time. When I was extracting full name and the interval and extracting little objects, leaves, and then marking them embeddable. If you know what that means. If you don't know what embeddable is, you are missing the best part of your ORM. All right. And I will continuously try to extract parts of my state into such little objects that I can make effectively immutable by deleting the setters. And Hibernate will still be okay with it. Quick parenthesis. If you are using Mongo can persist fully immutable objects, but you have to tell it how to construct them back when they come from the database. You have to annotate here in the constructor the fields that you to tell what is what, but it supports immediately immutable objects. Oh, one more parenthesis. Parenthesis in parenthesis. Sorry for doing this. Have you ever heard of immutables? I have a maniac client, one of my best clients, that uses this insanity from, I think it's Google. This thing over here generates fully immutable objects with Java. It's generated code. And I asked them, why aren't you using Kotlin or Clojure or Scala? Or why are you still in Java? Just reading into this is mind-blowing. Fully, deeply immutable objects generated for you. Now, to come back to Hibernate. If you do that, you extract little objects, little parts from your entities to group state and make them immutable and safer. But then there are these objects that move around that you use in your heavy logic, like was our case today with this little record for price computation. These little objects always make them immutable. Always immutable. These are always immutable. Okay? So this is how we use immutability in practice. Immutability is best in our most complex flows, in deep complex flows, when you want to make sure that nothing changes accidentally along the way. Right? And we can extract parts of your entity and propagate an immutable object along the way, right? Or we can actually have parts of our entities becoming immutable as embeddables by using embeddable in Hibernate. I need also to mention performance. Many people think, oh my God, performance will kill me if I use immutable objects. You will have a surprise, I dare to say, okay? So don't ever think you know how Java works until you measure and you read several books about how Java works. I'm teaching performance. Also C# and PHP, they do the same thing. Don't believe this is just JVM, no. The JVM does a heavy kind of optimizations under the hood. You can't imagine, So, now, there are some problems, though. If you are doing a lot of withers, if you are cloning and like I did, where did I do that? In my immutable basics, I did with. If you do this a lot, that's a sign that you are throwing away instances. You do. And that might impact performance if you are doing this million times per second. Right? But you know what the funny thing is? These objects that are freed over here, they are freed in the minor GC. Incredibly fast. They won't really harm much the performance. All right. If you clone a lot of collections, that's a high price of doing malloc to allocate large arrays in memory, contiguous arrays. That's a costly operation. Trying to make your root entity with Hibernate immutable is extremely painful. It doesn't really pay off that much. Putting immutability on DTOs that move across your APIs, it again doesn't worth the pain because DTOs, they are not really involved in very criminal logic. DTOs are peripheral objects that you map to your domain objects as fast as possible, and you work with your own domain model, right? And if you have some trivial, stupid code to write, don't think of immutability. Only if the logic is complicated. It's then when immutability really pays off, okay? So any kind of complex logic you have extracted into pure functions using immutable objects, think about this principle and pull impurity out of the complexity. Okay, that will also help you to test easier the complexity because you won't need to mock any, you won't need to raise Dockers, wiremocks, test containers, or Mockito. You don't need Mockito much if your functions are pure, the core functions, the criminal functions. So as a philosophy, don't change in there, compute and return. Immutability is a mindset, and because it's a mindset, I would say if you do this very often, and also just another refresh, this is bad. This is not really, it will defeat you will lose part of the benefit if you do that. Okay, don't mutate arguments, never mutate collections that you get as arguments. And don't reassign variables or parameters, don't do that. Right? And as a rule of thumb, try to make immutable your data that moves through complex logic or the little parts, peripheral, the leaves of your persistence entities. And that was all, folks. Now we'll start with the questions. All right, so get your hands hot and start shooting questions. And if I miss one, please paste it again in the chat. I will start from this question from Rami. Thanks a lot, Rami. I see the same faces in many of my meetings. I really love it. Within the value objects, does it take I mean, product category is just an enum. Wait, where did I do that? In my exercise refactor, yes, here. Category. This is an enum. Rest assured, I'm not changing anything here. It's an enum. All right. STS guy, IntelliJ rocks much better, but if you want the Spring integration rocket, you need to pay for a license. Or join my community that I fire a free license every month. Actually, 3 licenses. So join my community. Commercial. Good. Now, next question. So after Rami, let me keep track of it. In case someone changes it with the propagate, yes, you were right, Rami. If someone changes, if the category wasn't an enum but an object, then it would have the same issues. But I get your understood already. Unit testing. How do you do it for those private pure functions? Ooh, Adrian, you asked a delicate question in public. What did he do? What the heck is that now? Is that package protection? Package protection? Oh my god! Would you break encapsulation to test that function? Yes. Don't tell anyone. There are tricks here, but I would do that if it's that's very complex. Of course, not 200, but maybe 80 lines spread in a cluster in a cloud of 5-7 functions. Then okay, test them all, making them package protected. We have a Scala application that we are considering moving to Java Spring Boot. Should we stick to Scala? Ooh la la! I hear this very rarely, Gayatri. Scala is like moving from closing putting down the bazooka and taking the pistol. Scala is cool, but I guess you are moving it because your developers are not really thinking in a functional style, or perhaps you don't need the power of that language, and you find your Scala developers writing code imperatively using Java style and side defecting and not following the real Scala best practices. So, yeah, what can I say? If you can train your developers to think more in a functional style, I will definitely tell you to stick to Scala. Scala is my favorite language, if you ask. Although I'm falling more and more in love with Kotlin these days, but Scala was my real true love after teenage days. Okay, Java and then Scala. So Scala is amazing language. The amazing language. An immutable class, Tristano, an immutable class should be marked with final to avoid that superclass is immutable. Yes and no. Technically speaking, if you make this final, yes, you will block anyone from subclassing it. And for example, someone might just extend your record for price computation and then add a public int bang. Who does that in practice? Do you think a colleague of yours will do that? If you do, fire him. No. Who does that? Now, you know what you are really hitting if you make your objects final? You are hitting into Hibernate frameworks that want to proxy those classes. Proxying classes, final classes, is very hard to do. Not impossible, but very hard to do. Much harder to do. So technically speaking, now, if I am honest with you, classes in Kotlin are by default final. The case classes in Scala are by default final. Record Java 17 are by default final. So it is something. There is something true about immutability, because it can be confusing if a subclass offers a field that can be changed. And so, in short, to your question, my answer. Unless you are persisting it with Hibernate, I don't have anything against this practice. But me, myself, I won't really enforce it myself in my code. How much coffee do you drink before a presentation? Before this presentation, I deliberately didn't drink any coffee so that I can speak slower. No, kidding. How much coffee? What the question is this? I drink 2 coffees per day. Some days just 1 coffee per day. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. So I just love what I do, and I see a lot. I basically what fuels me is your questions. If I didn't have any questions, I would. Free licenses, yes, 3 per month. Oh my God, the 1 year free licenses. Come here, but I will raffle them, and there are 3,000 people in the community. So good luck. If you're a lucky guy. I raffled over 100 licenses until today. Make them public. What do you mean make them public? I forgot what you mean. So Adrian, come again. You computed the discount values, Claudio. Let's see what you say. And after that, you changed it in the object. You computed the discounted value, and after that, I passed my discounted value to a method that changes the product. You are right. Let's see. How do you pick the place where you put all the changes? Very subtle question. I now understand. So if you find this, let me answer with a slide. That's why I have 400 slides, because I can answer with a slide. That's exactly what I meant in my little slide. This is what these arrows are trying to tell you. That you should try to make the imperative shell smaller. What do I mean by that? a superficial layer. If you are following a DDD in the application service, if not in the facade, superficially, in the first public method that you enter in your use case. There, in plain sight, all the changes should happen. Very good question. So this is my first method. The compute price is my public method that I call when I come from my REST controller. It's my application service, if you like. Right? Application service. As superficial as possible to have the overview. What happened over here? I call this get cost. I call that thing good. I compute stuff and then I apply them in here. This is the philosophy. Idempotent. How at core? So Marin, next question. Let's see. I love this. 17 more. Folks, it's all recorded. So if you have to leave for other meetings, you get the recording back from Pentalog in several weeks. Idempotent. How at core functions we can't restrict three times discount if first two how at core functions we can restrict. Wow. Marin, beat me. Rephrase, please. Marin, Romanian. In Romanian. Say it in Romanian, I will translate it in English. What can we have in interactive shell? In imperative. Not imperative. Imperative. What do you mean? Imperative versus functional thinking. Imperative means do that, set that. So get that from a service, from a database, and then at the end, my product repository save product. That's a stupid example, but you get the point. Do. Imperative is at the outside. Okay, what can we have? We do changes to objects, queries, and commands. Changes to immutable objects, queries, and commands. All right. So I had also thought about this. If you ever find, you do the read in the imperative shell and you pass the data into your function, which is pure, the function returns the results back that you apply or persist in the imperative shell. So basically that leaves your function to be pure, although the start of your flow and the end of the flow are imperative, changing stuff. Functional programming, let's see the next question from Cosmin. Oh my God, this feels so good. Functional programming is the right way with the pure function. Basically, functional programming philosophy. Functional programming is not really all about passing a function as argument to another function. That's just what scares us first. Functional programming philosophy, if you want, ideology, is pure functions and immutable objects. That's it. That's it. That's what's really the hardest to get, the hardest design perspective. And if you do that, if you master that, you can apply it even if you are not really using it like a full-fledged Kotlin, Scala, Clojure, Haskell functional language. You can apply this in an imperative, like in a general purpose, like Java. And how many Red Bulls? Andre wants to know more. Actually, one guy asked me after one of my talks, a talk at this conference, asked me, did you smoke anything? No, man, I just like what I'm doing. Where can I find previous webinars? And that I think I can help you. My Pentalore, where is that? In my event for today, link code, I have a link to a website on which there are the past recordings. And if you don't find them, please email Pentalog. Good. Oh, I forgot what I was. I already answered. Sorry. Just a second. Okay. Is a favorite lesser known? How many Red Bull? Okay, but what is your favorite lesser known IntelliJ feature that we and all? Oh my God, John, are you really asking this? So the question is like, I'm really proud of this. Thank you. I wasn't planning to. On my website, on my clients, talks. I have an IntelliJ productivity tips curated by one of the leads of IntelliJ project from JetBrains. Tagir Valev, it's from Russia. He actually reviewed and helped me watch this video and do whatever I do there. Just follow my keys every single time. Do it 3 times and you will double your speed. I can't promise that, but very good stuff. And I'm preparing another refactoring, another video like this for next month. I just emailed today to Tagir asking him about helping me for doing another, where was it, Tagir? just asking him to do another talk together on refactoring this time. Let's see if he answers me. This is the guy that builds IntelliJ, right? Any DDD workshops recommendations? Mine. No, because I mean, I am still. I do DDD workshops for companies, but DDD is subtle technique. I don't do yet workshops open for anyone to join. I might do next year. If you want to be close to that, subscribe to learn from Victor. Subscribe. What the heck is that? Forms. I have a form that you can fill so that you get notified whenever I will publish any webinars, including DDD. I will announce it. It's hard to get people to for DDD. There is not that much widespread yet, unfortunately. But not to leave you with just this answer. My best suggestion is to read Implementing DDD by Vernon. Forget about the blue book at first. The first year, forget about the Eric Evans book. Read this book, Implementing Domain-Driven Design by Vogue Vernon. This is an amazing book to start with DDD, definitely. Okay, what's there? Okay, but if you missed the previous, don't forget to register. Okay, when one call causes 12 changes, it's brilliant question. I mean, exactly what is usually the case, Damien. So I guess you actually tried to apply the immutability, and you get in one function, and I can assume that you get this immutable object as an argument. Let's catch the code in our code here. You get some object as a parameter here, and then you do this. You change it a lot of times in different ways. You change the x, then you change the other, you put another, I don't have a wither for that, but come on, come on. By the way, withers will discourage you from using Lombok builders anymore. Which other? And new, and then you keep doing this for many times, and at the end you wonder, what did I choose immutable objects again? Because the code is still a mess, right? So that is a bad practice, that's a codesman. The codesman that you have immutable objects which are too large. Immutable objects can't have, I don't know, 12 fields. You will never see an immutable object with 12 fields. That's a bad practice. So if you want immutable objects in reality, you should keep them to under 5 or 7 fields, not more. You can very easily survive with a mutable with getters and setters. And I have 40 fields. I've seen it a lot of times in my clients. Entities with 40, 80, 60 fields. No problem with Hibernate. But immutability can't work like this, because that will force you to do this. So again, I had a slide about this. If your objects grow too big, where are you? Just a second. Here. If you find yourself doing this a lot of time, right? You need to listen carefully to the code and realize that if they change together, they might stick together. So if you change these together every time, why not making a class X, Y, Z containing the three things? Breaking much more aggressively the object into smaller immutable objects. So immutability, that's what's really hard with immutability. You have to break down the objects much more aggressively than you do with objects that have getters and setters. You can think of objects with getters and setters as just bags of data. That's it. Immutability doesn't work like that. How about functions that take functions as arguments? I know that this is what scares us. I just gave a talk about this at Devternity last week. This is what scares most of us. To be perfectly honest, this is what scares the shit out of us. When you first saw, 3 seconds, a function, taking a function and returning another function, I bet you looked very deep. What the? All right. So indeed, this is what scares us with functional programming, but it's not really the philosophy. It's just a syntax. But just okay. Just a second. I'm translating the question from Maureen. So we have a timeout 3 times when we invoke the discount, right? How can we make sure that we can call the discount just once? Perfect. So now the discounting. Okay, I got the point. So we have like compute discount, which is based on the product and I don't know, offer and blah, 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 it gives you always the same results. So this is idempotent. But that is a REST GET call, something that takes time, because you mentioned the timeout there. If this takes time and it throws a timeout, then what you can do, of course, is to memorize it, is to keep it indeed in a variable. Keep it there in a local variable to avoid, or even better, if you know that it returns the same values given the same arguments, what you can do is to cache it. Caching has a different concept when you use pure functions. You might have heard in your faculty about memoization. It's the act of remembering the result of a pure function. What's different? Well, you can never change it. It will give you the same answer next time. So you can memorize them. In other words, this cache never expires. This combination of keys will always provide you the same value. So it's safer to build caches with pure functions. That makes sense? It's safer to cache values returned by pure functions. They will be the same when they are called again. Really cool stuff. The only problem you have is how many of these values will fit in memory. By the way, this is how Kasparov got beaten. Memorize is for chess artificial intelligence. I actually wrote games like this when I was young. I was remembering the score of a certain board in a map. I wouldn't have to compute it again when I get their minimax algorithms. Oh my God. I'm really looking into doing a series of workshops on completely useless things like artificial intelligence algorithms like minimax, A star, or graph traversal, and who knows, join my community. What else? I'm new for the IntelliJ tool. Any tips? Let me paste you the link directly. I mentioned on my website is there. Here, let me put the link in the chat. It's easier for you. Copy link address, paste in the chat. There. What else? Oh my God, where were we? Thank you for enlightenment. Okay, blah, blah, new IntelliJ. Visual, are you planning to do any webinar on unit testing, clean architecture, and DDD? Yes, I just did that. So on my website over here, there is a live masterclass, or you can bring me in to your company, but starting next summer. Masterclasses, they will be earlier than that. Feel free to join. It's very, very cool atmosphere in there. Many people, the best people of many companies joining these super interesting sessions. The IntelliJ video helped me a lot. Oh, Julian can testify. Good. Thank you, Victor. Keep up the good work. Good. Enjoyed. Mean 12 repo saves. Damian, lost track. 12 repo saves. 12 repo saves. What do you mean? I don't understand. Domain Driven by Eric Evans. Yes, Domain Driven by Eric Evans is the book you can throw at the junior to give him a headache for 3 months. Okay, very good. I wouldn't really advise you read this book unless you have 3, 4, 7 years of experience. It's very, very hard. If you want like a challenge, you go, but don't expect to understand it. Not even the second time you read it. It's extremely difficult. That's why I mentioned the Red Book. I can see it being hard naming those immutable classes. Yes, I fully agree. And that's what leads me to another trick. These immutable objects, no one said that these need to be so public. Why not making them, not that, I took the wrong one, just a second. This weird, I guess you were looking, what the heck is this? It's kind of stupid, isn't it? So this, why not making it internal? What? Why not? Really curious, why not? So that is a problem. There will be a lot of immutable classes that you need somehow to hide because there are too many. Performance using immutability. I will challenge you to measure performance with immutability. Because, as I said, garbage collector is very fast in freeing up these instances because they are freed by just using ref count. It's a technique which allows much easier cleanup by garbage. Super fast. You don't need any traversal. Vogue Vernon says the same about aggregates. Keep them small. Yes, keep them small. I just had a training about that. So I don't know, 1, 2, 3 entities, not more. And that's really very challenging. With very, but there's a link there. What's that? Vernon, DD community. Ooh, nice one. Very good reference. Thanks, Gulam. Interesting. I didn't know about this article, but they're just a teaser. Yeah. Try to, or no, PDF. Nice. Strong, cool stuff. Very good. Thanks for sharing. I'll take this from here. What else? How to deal with immutability when you need to copy objects from one different property. I think I've demonstrated this. So copy objects with one different property. So snake move. New copy of snake. Yes. Let me see your game. Your game.play board. Okay. And in board.play, what do? While snake has next move, then if fruit position equals to snake move, this is a mutator, changes the snake, I think. This is what triggers the change, I believe. What should snake move return? Well, the new position, I think, but that's not an immutable object. If that's an immutable object, you need to do something like snake equals snake.move. That will return a new snake, and then snake.get position. And that's actually better. You know why? Because the code you had at the beginning, let me copy my code also, was violating the principle. It's a subtle, not violating a principle, but there was this command query separation thing that wasn't respected over here. Why? Because get position both changes the snake position. I mean, that's a command, and returns the new position. That's a query. How to replace snake in board? Well, games and immutability, sure, good luck with that. Board.setSnake. Why do I say games and immutability? It's hard because games, they also care about the performance. And if you clone the whole board, oh my God, depending on how big board you have, it might be an effort. Set snake will mean board is mutable. The other alternative, of course, is board equals board dot with snake snake. So don't try to make everything immutable, only the deepest parts, perhaps. Serialize and deserialize. Oh, come on. Withers, but you still don't solve it. You have a wither with the same Lombok or not, or if you have like a copy from Kotlin or from other languages. Amazing, I got through. Yes, just half an hour of questions. Oh, I have 8 more Q&A. But you pasted them in the chat, thanks a lot. Would you recommend getting some hands-on DDD experience when not practicing at the workspace? I've seen projects struggling for 1 year to actually get the architecture right and be happy with the DDD application. It was no one in the team except the DDD architect had experience with DDD. They struggled a lot. Let me give you an insight. After 3 months of development, they needed 1 month of refactoring. They had 2 sprints of refactoring in which they didn't ship any new feature. They just refactored. Because DDD is hard, you get a lot of debates, discussions. You don't want to take, if you try to put in production, oh my God, there will be deadlines, clients, fluctuating requirements, many others. DDD itself is very hard, so definitely yes. How to practice it? There is a supermarket kata. There is a kata I found recently. If someone asked me explicitly to do that, I think that's it. Let's see. Supermarket kata. Very good stuff about refactoring with DDD. I think that's C#, if I'm not mistaken. C#, yes. Supermarket. Google this. Okay. Wait. My God. You started with command query separation, but I didn't mention about command query responsibility segregation. CQRS is hell for 50 of teams using it. They regret they use it. CQRS. What the heck is CQRS in brief? CQRS is the attempt to do high performant DDD. If you just need domain-driven design, don't go for CQRS. That's easy. Mediator? No, CQRS is a different thing. CQRS is like having a database in which you just write the changes, and then you have a mechanism in place in which it somehow clones or projects this data, the write model, into a read database from which you serve responses as fast as possible. It's for performance. CQRS is for performance and DDD, not the commonest beast. DDD is, I don't know, less than 5% of typical, maybe 10% of typical projects, and high performance DDD. This combination is, I don't know, very rarely encountered. Maybe you are lucky. Yaldos, yeah, I got it right. CQRS and the hexagonal architecture are different. Yes, hexagonal architecture has to do with what I can't. Clean architecture. That's one talk, one of my talks about hexagonal architectures. CQRS is different. I can't just summarize clean architecture in 10 minutes. I wear a t-shirt. Yes, I'm hot. I'm heating up. So CQRS. Why is CQRS so bad? It comes with a lot of complexity. And is also very often associated with eventual consistency. It doesn't need to be so. Look, the many meanings of event-driven architecture, a brilliant talk from Martin Fowler, touching upon command query responsibility segregation, or if you want a good round trip, I'm sure Greg Young, the inventor of CQRS, has some very good talks about this. Ask this guy. Event-driven, yes, it is usually implemented with an event store, like Axon or something. Yes, it is usually implemented like this. API endpoints clean. The way we use CQRS here is simple. We have commands and queries. Yes, if you want to abuse this term, you might say CQS is like a lightweight version of CQRS in which you just have API endpoints, not API, functions that either just do queries or commands. So yes, there is a relationship between them. CQRS is a master architecture design big systems, right? Great questions, folks. I love this. Any other stuff? Come on, let's do a brainstorm about immutability in the reactive style. Well, immutability is a must-have if you want to go implement reactive flows. I'll tell you that. That's one of my core points to debate when I do my reactive workshop. So it's a must-have. I will reject a pull request if I see you with setters and then a mono and a flux. Oh my God, never, ever do that. Other questions, other ideas? Cool questions. Learning multi-threading. Asking as a beginner junior. Oh my God. There's a challenge for you. Try to compute all the first 1 million numbers, prime numbers in multi-threading. Bang! Try to do that. As a junior, how do you learn this as a junior? Asynchronicity is learned when you have deadlocks and race bugs. This is when you really learn multi-threading code. But if you stick to immutable objects and pure functions, you should be pretty safe. And also in Java, please never use synchronized. Never use like latches, barriers, or God forbid, notify from the object. Never. Instead, try to design all your asynchronous flows using completable futures. So one way to start with is probably Venkat completable future. It has a very not this one. It was a 3-hour workshop on completable future. It's basically a full training as a talk at a conference. Follow this, try to do what this guy does and play with that, and then do the challenge. How can I complete the first 10 million items, prime numbers, in parallel? Persistence data structure. What do you mean, Yildos? Can you come again, please? Will Java 19 with Yes, Angorak, you are right. Things get very wild if you try to get but asynchronicity is very wild. That's why I mentioned Venkat for you. This guy is very slow and clear. It's perfect to now. With Java 18 and no 19, will Java recover Kotlin? Will these kill Kotlin? Kotlin is also evolving. They've just added data classes. Not data classes, value types. It's something recent. They have type aliases, value objects, and data classes. Kotlin is also evolving. Not sure. It's moving much faster. Java these days, we have records, but Java, you have to realize Java has the biggest legacy code base in the world today. They can't kill the checked exceptions, no matter how much we want that. They can't kill serializable. They have some things to keep in place, some syntax to stick to. They can't do like Kotlin did. Maybe, who knows? But the legacy keeps Java back. And the fact that they have to make sure some trillions and lines of code still work, it will slow down things. But they are moving faster now than before, definitely. This exists in persistent data. What is this? Persistent data structure, not ephemeral. Yes, an entity from hybrid. What do you mean? Previous version of itself. Oh my God, self-tracking. What the heck? Oh my God. Keeping track. That, this will play nice with event sourcing, storing all your internal state transitions. Aggregate in a CQRS. If you want to talk dirty, in a CQRS application, aggregates are persistent data. They keep track of all their past history, previous versions, because they have events it can traverse in the past. Hardcore stuff. How can you do primitives wrappers without the memory overkill, like C# struct? That was what I was reading these days about Kotlin. In Kotlin, they've added this. In Java, it's not possible. The kind of hack. Oh my God. What the heck was that? Data class is something new. If you can help me out on this one. In Kotlin it's possible. In Java, it's not yet possible. They are struggling with Valhalla project for several decades, maybe more than 10 years. Assassin's Creed, no, not here. Java. They are trying to improve Java so that we can store primitives. In other words, what you are asking there, Georgia, is when you do like new customer ID that has inside just the long ID, can I allocate this not on the heap, but somehow avoid allocating this anywhere? Keep it as a primitive under the hood. That's what Project Valhalla is trying to achieve for the past 12 years. They are not yet there, and they won't be very soon. Yildiz, I think it's more than what you say about persistent data objects, if I got this right. It preserves the previous or maybe I'm wrong. It's the first time I see this article. Thanks a lot for sharing. I will read it later. Kotlin keeps breaking things, libraries and stuff is what I heard. Kotlin doesn't have as much legacy as Java, so they can afford to break things, right? Georgia, yes, I understood what you said. Will Kotlin kill Java projects? Well, it defeated Java in Android. It became the default in Android. It is very, very suited for UI building, for sure. Mihai, you are helping me with Kotlin 1.6 release. This is what you mean, right? Data. I don't know how to call them. Value. I'm not that fluent with Kotlin. Okay. So will Kotlin kill Java projects? I don't know, but you definitely, if you want to learn a second language, and if you have discussed, if you already mastered TypeScript, and you're not very big fan of Perl or Python or Bash, then probably Kotlin is for you. You will learn a lot of mindset. It will open your mind. So if you master the Java, go for Kotlin if front-end is not an option or you don't want to go to TypeScript. You are so search browser history on live session. Yes, I am brave. This is Sparta. You are the library from JetBrains. The library from JetBrains. The library from JetBrains. Beat me. What can you tell about the monads in functional programming? What can I say? Not much. The monads are. Is that it? No, not this. There was a very good article on DZone about functors and monads. That's it, which explains monads and functors in common language for a Java developer, right? In very stupid words, if I may, please don't. If there is a pure functional developer around, please don't be harmed. If you run into something like not mono. Let me completable future. Let's talk that. Some completable future, and you say completable future. No, bad example. It's complicated. This one. Optional. It's a more commonly spread one. Or stream. Stream. That all the languages in the house have this. Most. A stream of a product, right? And if you ever have a method called flatMap in Java, if you have a method that can flatten a stream of streams into a single stream, I'm not sure if I can build an example that fast. I will try. Private list of strings like tags, and then let's put a getter. God, give me a getter here, please. Thank you. And then here in this game, I will say s.flatMap, and I will say s, which is products basically, p from product, p.getTags stream. You see what happens over here? If I have this method which can flatten, if I just do map over here, right? If I just do map, what I will get at the end is a stream of stream. It's the simplest way to understand it. Stream of streams. If there is an API way in which you can flat map that thing, so from a stream of stream, you now have a single stream of, that's a monad. Flat map is what makes stream optional. The try from Vavr, completable future, mono, flux, all of them are monads, because they can all take something which is a stream and flatten it, put it. Read the article. It's really, really tough if you want to go mathematics deep. Where do you see Kotlin in 5 years? Don't push me. I don't know. I can tell you that many good companies are now moving to Kotlin for their backend Java developing. This is also proven by having Kotlin as an option in Spring Starter. So there is a library from JetBrains for persistent structures in Kotlin. Ooh la la. Kotlin X Immutable. Oh, Kotlin. All right. Good stuff. So immutable collections. Okay, but isn't it part of the language? Or if it's just immutable, that's part of the language. What am I missing? Exceeds a bit my expertise. I'm not sure. Do you code in .NET? Well, if I have to, it's not my native language. I'm very, but yeah, I do trainings in .NET. I had some gaming companies in for some workshops. The problem are the same. Only that you have some geek stuff with the operator overloading and link queue and that stuff and async await. That add additional complexity to your game. But yeah, we can have a chat. Ask the question. I might try to answer. I'm not an expert. I'm just translating my design ideas from Java to. Okay, is Kotlin used to generate JavaScript? Yes, I was shocked to find out that you can compile Kotlin to JavaScript, for Christ's sake. Okay, that's really amazing. I mean, whoa, that they're playing a big game. Not sure if that's a very common habit, but for Java, definitely, I think the default one, definitely the default is the JVM platform. You can compile the same Kotlin to JavaScript, and also to iOS, if I'm not mistaken. They're trying to shoot many rabbits at the same time. Kotlin long building web applications with React and Kotlin. Okay, what's this? Okay, React. Okay, Kotlin and React. I mean, we're wondering how the heck is possible because it compiles to JavaScript. Okay, good stuff. So I think it's still a niche. Kotlin is far better than TypeScript. I can tell you that. What else? Any questions? My God, it's 44. 5 years Kotlin everywhere. Kotlin has a problem. It is promoted by JetBrains. I thought it was a Russian company, but actually it's a Czech company, if I'm not mistaken. Czech, yeah, I was told. But most of the developers are in St. Petersburg, Moscow, and like this. Not in US. That's the only problem Kotlin language has. It's not made by Americans. Swagger CodeGen. What can I say about these tools? They are used everywhere. I mean, I almost never see a microservice project without something like that somewhere. So there is generating. This is very good to generate your artifacts on both producer and consumer side. You avoid the problem of having inconsistencies between the DTOs in one side and the DTOs in the other side. So yeah, a Maven plugin which generates based on the Swagger definition, generates your object and your API. And actually, that's the trend for Spring also. If you heard of Spring Fagin client, it's a very cool thing that basically based on some interfaces, it's very cool stuff. Just like the Spring Data GPA, the same thing but for REST endpoints. And then what was the fun thing? These can be generated by Swagger Gen. The Open API, the same thing. Open API is the next version, basically. Nginx was also initially Unix is made in Russia, in Mother Russia. You can generate these and also the store objects that move on the wire, of course, with Maven CodeGen. Kotlin multi-platform alpha. Man, you are killing me. I'm not that good at Kotlin. Okay. Native on mobile, JS and JVM. Maven or Gradle? Come on, what the heck? I'm old. Maven. Gradle, fine. I have to work with Gradle nowadays because I'm writing this plugin and I'm banging my head on the thing. What the? Not much different. It's just imperative, not declarative. That's the only feeling I have. But equally powerful. Gradle with Kotlin DSL, of course, but not me. That was a template. Programming with exceptions. Never use checked exceptions, Guillaume. Never use checked exceptions. Checked exceptions are a mistake in Java. I keep saying this every week. Mistake in Java, we only use runtime. Java is the only language in the world that has checked exceptions. What is the percentage of SQL in project? What is this? Like, you're using me like your tool to do a polling through the two companies? Okay, I agree. SQL, 90%. NoSQL, 10%. But please mind that I go to companies that care for their developers, that invest money and time in their training, for companies that care about the quality of their software. There are many startups which moves to NoSQL, but they are not much concerned of quality. Either or the result monad. Guillaume, what do you mean? You're continuing what? No, that's bad. I mean, like 90 people after 140, almost 2 hours. Okay, I should schedule just open Q&A discussions. They are more fun for me. Wait, you mentioned something that comes from extreme functional programming. There is this idea that in a function, in a method following strict functional programming principles, you should not throw. And I can explain you why. Because if you throw something, that exception thrown will make this method have temporal coupling with other methods around. Why? Because you never get to print line anything if you exit the execution. So in a sense, some people believe throwing exceptions, they are not functional, purely functional. So what they do instead, they do something very weird, the try monad. Someone mentioned Valve at some point, right? Go, exactly. Go also does that, Clojure does that, Haskell does it. They are returning the exceptions. So instead of throwing, you are told to return a failure of the runtime. What? Man, if you don't understand this, then mono, if in reactive, the same thing, mono.failed. If that's a completable feature, because future, then that's completable feature failed stage. The same thing, you return the exception on the alternative case. They are trying to stop you from breaking the execution flow and short-circuiting it with exceptions by returning the values. But that in a Java language with a very strong imperative background is too much. People will scream when they see you throwing them. What the fuck is a try? What is a try? It's from Vaver, of a library which I will discourage you from using. Don't do that. But if you are playing with immutable, with asynchronicity, this habit will hit you. Completable future, observable, mono, they all do the same thing. They return the exception wrapped in something. This is how Go lives. But there's an extreme way of this. That's an extreme life. So I won't leave it here. Okay. Ooh la la. So sneaky throws. Oh my God, sneaky throws. Sneaky throws. Yes, Java is old. I know, Gayatri. How does it feel not to have to patch log4j all around? Are you mentioning by any means the recent vulnerability that was discovered with log4j? Are you mentioning this? At this point, you should look to your production POM. Do you use this version? Oh my God. Are you mentioning this? As a freelancer, if you ask me, Mishu, I'm missing a team. But it's good that I have you and several others, like, I don't know, Gayatri, I keep seeing Ralph, my friend, and George are still with me here discussing stuff. It's a bit depressing not having a team, but I did have to patch this for all of my clients. And I actually discovered the way. Look, the latest thing I discovered today. Can I show this to you easily? Or am I on master? No. Let me put on master. POM, please. I just discovered that you include this single plugin in your Maven, all your problems will go away. What the fuck? What is that? OWASP check dependencies. It pointed out that log4j stuff. It warned me in my build. Look about it. Just put this in your pipeline, you're done. It checks for free your dependency versions. All right. What else? Where did you get your parking bay kata from? I don't know. It's old, very old. My usual resources are two. I have my catalog that I have like, is it here? Race car, no. Parking, no. There is also Emily Backe, if you are a fan of, but Thomas, if you are a fan of, are you part of my mob team that I will do to Thomas, no. Why don't you, I will do the mob programming. If you are a fan of doing mob coding katas, why don't you take part of the next, email me if you want to be part of a mob programming session that we'll do together. Now this girl, Emily Backe, has an amazing resource, Emily Backe, on his GitHub. This lady over here and JBrains have the most JBrains GitHub, the most katas I know of here. These two folks have almost all of them. All right, what else? Twist lock, Docker image problems. Yeah, but not only Docker image, I'm talking about library dependencies. I didn't know about twist lock, even from, okay. Version 2.6, okay, Juke, oh my God. Tricky. GPA is definitely the widest use, but I have one super cool, super high-tech client out there, which is using Juke. It's very, 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 very cool, the feeling, but it's quite niche. You won't find developers' experience with that. But you get rid of many of the dangers of GPA if you move to Juke. I don't know Juke yet, what I've heard of. I will learn it with you folks in my community next year. I have a list of stuff. This is among the things that really is really interesting. It's a bit Java specific, but I'm a Java developer. So what else did I miss in the chat? Try what this is. Okay, custom runtime exceptions. Yes. So don't use checked exceptions. Instead, only use runtime exceptions in Java. Okay, that was my actual response to you. Use random exceptions. Don't go for try though, like we scared people out over here. This is like, what the hell? Don't do that on a regular basis. It's not Java. What else is what breaks with lambdas? Throw, yeah. What else? What? My God, 2 hours. That's an absolute record until here. 2 hours and 1 hour of questions. Oh my God. Good. Any other question? I hope not. I really hope not. I'm really tired. I have to take a break. My wife is in the room. I have to end this. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a safe day, cool day, relax, enjoy the holidays. And in case you have some time to waste between the holidays and New Year's, do a coding kata. Would you? Do a coding kata. Excellent. See you next time. And the one last session in January. Good. Enjoy the holidays. Happy holidays. Good. Bye. See you soon, Misha. See you tomorrow. Bye. Bye, folks.